Hi, I'm Ophi YouTube Videos. I am a feminist and a lesbian. I have no idea how my voice carries in the kitchen. We're trying something a little bit new today. So, something about me that is like a combination of a lot of factors. If you've watched my videos before, you know I did not have the best home life growing up. Body image stuff that the Snark Reddit made about me thinks that they want to express concern about society, whatever. Eating is hard. Eating is very difficult for me. Having the energy to make food on a consistent basis and feed myself, really, really challenging. Especially as like a disabled person, a poor person. Anyway, all that to say, I recently got my food stamps. I'm going to make a dinner that I like to make and freeze for myself and that I eat a lot. Like, when I have these around, I just eat them like twice a day until I'm out of them. Anyway, I'm gonna cook. I'm talking about food and eating and how important food is, and I have not been feeding myself very well lately, so I want to do better about that. I want to model doing better about that because I'm going to be talking about how good and important food is. So, yeah. I mean, we're gonna cut back and forth from this to like the regular video, but you know. This video, like a lot of my videos, comes from my desire to defend a group of people who I think it is a little bit complicated to defend, but who I also think are still worth feeling protective over. And I mention that because lately, and this might be going on all over Twitter, I would love to hear if that's the case for those of you who also use that hell site, or if it's just because enough people who I interacted with in the past have done this. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of posts from eating disorder Twitter pop up on my timeline. Part of why I wanted to do that whole preamble is because, like, okay, we're going to be talking about eating disorder Twitter today, an online space that has probably existed under lots of different domains and under lots of different names. I'm not going to show you any of their posts, okay? I've seen a handful of them recently, and the thing about posts like this is that they are sort of, you've seen one, you've seen them all. Okay. These are posts that are very reminiscent of what I would have been familiar with on Tumblr as like a thinspo blog. And because I did not stop to define thinspo, this is from the Bulimia Project's article about it, which you can find linked in the description. Thinspo is short for thinspiration, a combination of thin and inspiration. It refers to internet content that promotes or encourages unhealthy body goals, disordered eating, and other similar, quote, pro-eating disorder, end quote, habits. A significant amount of this content is produced by individuals who struggle with eating disorders themselves. Many don't realize the damage they're doing to their bodies and the potential harm they're doing by creating content that encourages others to adopt practices associated with eating disorders. Many teenagers fall down a rabbit hole of thinspo internet content, which can significantly distort how they view their bodies and what they see as the ideal body type. Viewing thinspo content can lead to an increase in distorted weight perception and lower self-esteem, which in turn can result in depression and anxiety and lead to eating disorders. Research has suggested that while this content alone doesn't generally cause eating disorders, it may encourage them, since low self-esteem and distorted weight perception can contribute to eating disorders. It can also make it more difficult for a person to see they have a severe mental health problem, delaying treatment. My argument in this video is that these spaces are so bad and detrimental to people, to humans, to teenagers, that they should be avoided at all costs, including even to observe and comment on them. We're going to be talking about the concept of spaces online that glorify disordered eating and other self-harming behaviors, but, you know, I'm coming at that very much from the angle that those are bad and wrong, and also that those are something that would cause me personally more damage to look into for this video. And my take is that food is good, feeding yourself is good. I'm feeding myself, and I'm talking about how I think we are being very, very mean to people who are not feeding themselves. Even though they're being mean to us, it doesn't mean that we should be mean to them. A lot of people have written about this. I mean, I'm sure that there are even, I think, Go Ask Alice. Was that about this? Or was Go Ask Alice about drugs? I know that there have been YA books that have explored this concept, probably to varying degrees of successfulness. One that I remember enjoying, I don't think it was specifically about like online thinspo or fitspo, but Winter Girls by Lori House Anderson. I spoke in my 13 Reasons Why video about how much I love Lori. I remember rereading Winter Girls in like 2020, I think. I remember I got it as an ebook from the library. Something I've noticed, I rarely ever have to wait to get an ebook for like a YA novel if I'm looking to read something that was like popular when I was a child. I didn't have to wait for Winter Girls then. I didn't have to wait for Speak when I read that. I didn't have to wait for 13 Reasons Why. I remember being really struck when I was rereading Winter Girls because it's just so clear that these are young women who are like engaging in very severe self-destruction, and that self-destruction will be ruinous to them, and that also there's a way to be compassionate about that. And I don't think, no matter how cruel the post that you are quote retweeting is, and sometimes they are very cruel, like I am not excusing the content that gets posted on these corners of the internet, especially not when they are using other people's faces and bodies to prove their point. I'm just saying, you know, you see somebody who is mean and clearly very mentally ill, and that's probably why they're being mean, and the thing you say about them is this gratuitous death wish fantasy that you have for them and everybody in their in-group. And it is an in-group. Like, it's a very decentralized thing. I don't know to what extent these people are friends with each other, but I mean, it's an in-group in that it is formed with the assumption that everybody on the outside does not understand. Basically, these are internet groups comprised of, let's be real, probably mostly young women who are, yes, being cruel, but also who have all bonded with each other over this idea that the entire world does not understand how much they all hate themselves. Only each other understand that. And then, on top of that, you're going to add in, like, actual bullying and harassment from the rest of the world. I don't understand how that makes sense. I don't understand how that serves any kind of purpose. Because, like, I do understand this idea of, we're going to push back against this thing that we see and that is cyberbullying, even if we are ourselves cyberbullying these other people. Like, we have made our idea of, like, what the justice is or whatever. But, like, you interacted with that. You interacted with this portion of the internet that the algorithm didn't previously know to serve into your feed. And if you would have scrolled past it, or if you would have clicked show me less like this, or you would have clicked block account, you would have gotten less of that served back to you than you do when you interact with it. Okay, I always do like 3 tins of these when I make them because they are super simple. And I do part of them just flat on like a regular cookie tin, but I'm using these muffin tins for some of them. These are incredibly simple. I probably could have talked about the recipe when I first said I was cooking. It's just like rotisserie chicken. The kind I got from Aldi is very flavored, so I didn't have to add more seasoning. If you're less white than I am, you'll probably want to add more seasoning. But it's that, a can of cream of chicken soup, and cheese. And in this one, for my muffin-shaped ones, I'm also adding bacon bits, just to shake things up. Come on. Got it. So it's just that inside of a crescent roll. And then you freeze them and you heat them up in the air fryer for as many days as they last. Like, they're stable in the freezer pretty much forever, but I usually eat all of them within a few days. It's not that I have a lot of patience for the concept of fitspo or thinspo in general. I really don't. I think that it does an unimaginable amount of damage to the young people who participate in it. I just don't think that the message that we need to be sending to young people who get caught up in an online space that is like designed to make them worse and to reward the worst parts of their disorder, I don't think the thing that we should be telling them is that they are evil and wrong and bad and all deserve to die just for having gotten sucked into that. I think the thing that we should be telling them is, hey, this is not good for you. It's just not. Like, it's not good for anybody. It's not good for the people they're mocking. It's not good for fat people in general. It's not good for people who struggle with any kind of disordered eating. And it's not good for the people who are posting it and who are constantly doubling down in their own rhetoric. You don't have to ever want to see that. I never want to see that. I block so many thinspo blogs, Tumblrs, Twitters, anything that comes into my feed that I hate because I feel like it's telling me not to eat. I'll block it because otherwise I will spend a lot of time looking at it and it's not good for me. I don't know what we do about that. I don't know where to put this empathy I have for these, people who I perceive mostly to be young women who are engaging in this thing that is like so dangerous that I myself do not want to look at it. But I do know that like hatred and mockery and harassment is not the right move. And I'm not pulling it from nowhere when I say that it is extremely bad for you and dangerous. This is from clevelandclinic.org, where a psychologist named Susan Albers spoke about thinspo and its dangers. Some of those images can't be erased, and some of the phrases get stuck and repeat in people's heads, Dr. Albers explains. People sometimes tell me about thinspo that they saw 20 years ago that they're still replaying. People who have never experienced an eating disorder or body dysmorphia may not realize exactly how hard it can be to recover. You aren't just trying to change eating habits, you're consciously rejecting thought patterns that feel right. Thinspo is dangerous because it validates that feeling. I've seen it in clinic. While they might not always realize it, people are often looking for triggers that will allow them to maintain the disorder, and thinspo is a way to fuel it, Dr. Albers shares. It's kind of a chicken and egg question, she continues. Does thinspo worsen the mental health issue, or does the mental health issue worsen the compulsion to seek out thinspo? It can go both ways. The article also says, if you're already struggling with mental health concerns, thinspo can trigger relapses into self-destructive behaviors like obsessive body checking and encourage unhealthy thought patterns. People are very impacted by thinspo, Dr. Albers laments. It really sticks like glue in your head. This article also shares some warning signs of if your consumption of thinspo content has become problematic enough that you should consider reaching out for help. I'm going to put them on the screen now, and if this is something that you struggle with and that you have a hard time not allowing yourself to engage with, I want to note I'm making it sound a lot easier than it is. It took me years to break this pattern. You should talk to somebody if you can, if this is something you're struggling with. You are not evil or bad or wrong for having gotten sucked into this. People telling you that are mean and don't understand, but I do promise there are people who understand. There are resources for you. I have found a few, and I put them in the description. And if anybody has additional resources that they think I should link to, I would love to hear about them in the comment section. I will update that description. I've just always been at my absolute worst. Anytime that I've even looked at a thinspo blog, this is Tumblr. I don't do this on Twitter. But it did used to be something that I struggled with. I never had a thinspo blog, but I definitely had the names of some of them memorized and would go look at them. And especially particularly ones about being, awful and suicidal and horrible and hating yourself. And at the time, it kind of felt like a pressure valve and oh God, I wish I could do this. I used to vent in my Tumblr tags kind of a lot. But never quite like that, more just, oh, I'm terrible. Anyway, I see that now as an adult. And to be clear, like, the whole prefrontal cortex thing is pretty much just pop psychology, and I distrust anybody who's trying to use it seriously at this point, because it's usually in conjunction with people who don't want to let people transition, etc. But having a prefrontal cortex, I now see that kind of thing, and other than it making me go, oop, I'm gonna block that, it makes me sad. I look at it and I feel sad because I feel like I at least have some of this flap down, keeping the worst, most vitriolic garbage I think about myself at bay. And then these are like people who are probably younger than me who don't. And that makes me sad. It doesn't make me wish violent, terrible death on these people. It doesn't make me mad at them. It makes me feel sad. And not even an actionable kind of sad, because I feel sad about these children, but I don't want to be anywhere near them. I don't want to see what they're posting. I don't even have a solution to this. I don't have like a clear conclusion. I don't have a reason that I'm making this video essay other than the fact that, like, we should leave them alone. We should leave them alone. We should be mad at the fact that platforms don't have this kind of thing as against their terms of service. And we should be mad that the only people who are trying to moderate anything that teenagers come in contact with on the internet are conservative freaks. Because I don't want teenagers to be moderated away from being able to see gay people and trans people and learn about what all of their options are in the world. I don't want them to be taught that they need to be behaving this way, that they need to be seeing themselves this way, that they should get rewarded for seeing themselves this way. But I also don't think we should harass them for it either. But, like, what do you do about that? What do you do about that? Like, I just genuinely do not know what you do about that. I don't know who cares about this on our side of things here. I don't know. Do you? Okay, here's what my 3 tins of roll-ups look like. I actually did want to note, so if you search for hashtag thinspo on either Tumblr or Instagram, you'll get something like this that pops up. This is a result of moderation and of these things being declared against the terms of service. That is just not something that happens on Twitter, which I could prove by searching hashtag thinspo and did earlier, but will not do in this video because I am not showing you any thinspo. On Elon Musk's Twitter/X, there's not any kind of moderation for the word thinspo, let alone for what has been going around lately, which is hashtag edtwt, or eating disorder Twitter. Again, though, and as is outlined in the article that I was just reading from a moment ago, even when a specific tag is filtered out, generally people will continue to post similar things under different tags, different acronyms, whatever, under things that seem innocuous, but they're actually now posting thinspo under stuff like that. It's an issue where even when it is being moderated, it's not being moderated in a way that fully eradicates it. It just makes it a bit harder to find. And that's obviously going to be an issue with anything that you're trying to moderate out of existence on a website. But I was a bit surprised to realize that both Tumblr and Instagram had better safeguards for searching that than Twitter did. That's at least one good thing. I've had hashtag thinspo as a filtered out tag on my Tumblr for like 5 years, so I didn't know. Also, it was literally all the way back in 2012 that this became against Tumblr policy, and I'm going to read you the post from it. But again, 2012, and it is 2024, and there is no such policy on Elon Musk's Twitter. While we won't allow blogs dedicated to triggering self-harm, we will not act against blogs engaged in discussion, support, encouragement, and documenting the experiences of those dealing with difficult conditions like anorexia, bulimia, and other forms of self-injury. We absolutely want Tumblr to be a place where people struggling with these behaviors can find solace, community, dialogue, understanding, and hope. We will apply this policy on a blog-by-blog basis. There won't be any wholesale suspension based on tags or text. We're not under the illusion that it will be easy to draw the line between blogs that are intended to trigger self-harm and those that support sufferers and build community, but thanks to the tireless efforts of our amazing support team, we will do our best. With the benefit of all your input, we've written a new draft of this policy, changing some wording and adding some clarifying language. Promotion and glorification of self-harm. Don't post content that actively encourages or promotes self-harm. This includes content that encourages readers to cut or injure themselves, embrace anorexia, bulimia, or other eating disorders, or commit suicide rather than, e.g., seeking out counseling or treatment, or joining together in supportive conversation with those suffering or recovering from depression or other conditions. Dialogue about these behaviors is incredibly important, and online communities can be extraordinarily helpful to people suffering with these difficult conditions. We aim to sustain Tumblr as a place that facilitates awareness, support, and recovery, and to remove only those blogs that cross the line into active promotion or glorification of self-harm. In addition, we got some helpful suggestions from the National Eating Disorders Association, NEDA, to improve the language that will start showing alongside searches for tags associated with the promotion of self-harm, such as pro-Anna, pro-Mia, thinspiration, and thinspo. Here's an example of the revised language. Eating disorders are not lifestyle choices. They are mental disorders that, when left untreated, can cause serious health problems, and at their most severe, can even be life-threatening. For treatment referrals, information, and support, please contact the National Eating Disorder Association's helpline at 1-800-931-2237 or www.nationaleatingdisorders.org. This Tumblr post then continues to say that they're working with other health organizations to craft similar language around other pro-self-harm search terms. This blog post also actually shows a lot of people on either side of the argument and this debate about whether or not this is content that Tumblr should censor or whether it should just have been left alone. Tumblr itself has some real issues with moderation and staff. I'm not pretending it doesn't, but I do think that this is a well-intentioned terms of service update, and as far as I'm concerned, this is something that I would like to also see on Twitter. Talking about self-harm is, it could be something that is protected because it can be something that is so helpful. And to me, that's the same case whether you are harming yourself by not eating or by any other way, which there are also absolutely Tumblr blogs dedicated to encouraging, and also Twitter accounts, I'm sure. This is just me having something that I want to talk about a lot more than it is me having a full and cohesive video essay. You should eat. You should eat food. You should eat food and post about it online, maybe, if it's good. It is getting a little bit warm in here. You have to bake these at 350 for about 20 minutes-ish. I'm linking to the original recipe in the description in case anybody wants to try this. If you do, let me know. But it was a recipe that we used to eat when I was a kid, and then I have tweaked it since and simplified it, and yeah. I would love to know if anybody else eats this, because it is probably my favorite dinner and lunch, as I've already said. When I said earlier, do you know who's concerned about this? I genuinely am asking. I would love to know. I know that I have friends here in the Nuance Corner who are more researched and educated than me, who have been able to point me in the right direction for things in the past, and who I know will continue to do that in the future. Because here's the thing, I am concerned about teenagers being able to get into just whatever they want to online, especially when whatever they want to online is going to encourage them to do things that are incredibly self-destructive in the long run, and to normalize those self-destructive things. But also, the internet is such an important thing for me to believe that teenagers deserve access to. I mentioned earlier, at the top of this video, I said I didn't have the best home life. If I didn't have access to the internet, specifically to Tumblr, and probably to Tumblr blogs, not the ones that, I would go to when I was feeling terrible, but, blogs that I followed that would sometimes post about their own things that might have gotten nuked in, a site-wide ban on anybody who ever said the words adjacent to self-harm or not eating properly, right? That would have been very bad for me, and also for a lot of those other people and their ability to socialize and find information. I was homeschooled. I was homeschooled the whole way through. No preschool, no high school, and then I got rejected from community college because the high school diploma doesn't mean anything anywhere other than Arkansas. Uh, if I didn't have access to the internet, I wouldn't have had access to friends. I wouldn't have met my best friend. I wouldn't have met a lot of people who have been incredibly, incredibly important to me. I wouldn't have learned so many things about just basic entry level feminism back when I did not live in a household that was encouraging me to think about those kinds of things. I'm concerned about teenagers being given free rein to like voice all of the worst things of all of these outside world influences we're already putting on them that aren't coming just out of nowhere in a vacuum on these Twitter, Tumblr, whatever blog, whatever short form content website that they will take next. I don't think it's great. But I also do see what the people who objected to that original Tumblr rule back in 2012 were saying, that it can be important and good to model somebody coming through the other side of that. I didn't want to film at my desk, and I didn't want to eat my roll-ups on the bed and get crumbs. These are peanut butter cups, also from Aldi. Cheap, really good. Like, I like them more than I like name brand, like Reese's peanut butter cups. They are so good. Peanut butter to chocolate ratio, perfect. It was kind of important to me that I eat and I talk about food in a positive way in this video, and that I say, how damaging being caught in the wrong cycles are, according to my analytics. And, hopefully it stays that way, because I don't have a huge interest in having like a large teenage audience. Not a lot of very young people are watching this video. Like medium young people like me and older are. um, I'm digging myself into a hole, I think, but bear with me. Okay, I don't think that I'm talking to a bunch of teenagers who are going to find this and be like, oh wow, I should listen to her and stop looking at these blogs. But I do kind of think it's worth saying, like, I have worried about this kind of thing. I have been caught in these kinds of behaviors. I'm uploading a video where I'm eating snacks, I'm talking. If that and anything else that I said about how I understand that it's hard, but that there is still help and value in getting help, is useful to somebody, I want to put that out there. And I want to know how to balance being concerned about what kind of trouble a teenager can get into in the internet without having to get into bed with conservatives, because conservative politicians are worried about that. Or, I don't even like the way that Democrat politicians talk about online censorship. But I don't know exactly who I should be looking to be saying something better. I want to know what I can read and who can, like, give me some better ideas about this. Whether that is people in my comment section who have just also been turning this over, or if you know of, like, organizations or websites that I should be checking out. Again, that Tumblr post that I read you was from 2012. They have had other content moderation rules since then. The one about not glorifying self-harm behaviors seems to be the same, but, pretty famously in, I think, 2018, there was a whole update where nudity was no longer allowed on the platform. It was a whole big deal. They specifically clarified it was, and it was phrasing that you could really tell that they were proud of, which is why it always sticks in my head. They specifically clarified female presenting nipples. That wasn't even in my script. I didn't realize when I sat down that I was going to be talking about female presenting nipples. Anyway, that also was like, there was kerfuffle about that and about the banning of adult content on the website. I know a lot of people who quit Tumblr at that time. I stayed on Tumblr at that time, and I still check Tumblr pretty much every day, every other day, but I never started using Twitter until after Elon took it over. Nobody tell him that. Like, I had one, and I had, like, used it for, like, a few days stretches at a time and then forgot about it. But it wasn't until, like, last year that I started using it a bit more, and then especially ever since I started making videos, it has felt like a useful way to kind of keep an eye on things and get ideas for things I want to talk about, such as for this video. I mean, it really may only be that there were like 5 people who were getting a bunch of interactions on Twitter for quote tweeting and making fun of people in these disordered eating spaces, and maybe they just all came across my timeline and I've been talking about this for the better part of an hour and nobody else noticed it. But in case they did, or in case this ends up coming up later, or in case it's helpful for anybody for me to say, like, yeah, I have also struggled with these things. I don't think that these blogs should exist. I think teenagers should be allowed to be online, though, so we gotta balance those things. If any of that's useful, I just wanted to say it, I guess. So, yeah, I would love to know what you think. If you have any other reading that you think that I could do on the subject, I don't want to read actual pro-Anna blogs, but, like, I would love to read what smart and compassionate people think about this topic. I'd also love to know what kind of snacks and food you guys buy at Aldi or other grocery stores. If you're not somewhere that has an Aldi, it's just like a cheap grocery outlet. Again, I really love these peanut butter cups. If you'd like more videos from me, I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel. I try to upload about once a week. I usually have a little bit more of a clear point in my videos, or at least like a specific thing that I'm talking about, and this was more of just a broad conversation that's been rattling around in my brain for a few days. I would love to know what you think, though, if there is anything going on that you would like me to make a video about. I have a suggestion form on my channel about. I usually forget to put it in the description. I will try to remember this time. Also in the description you can find the link to my Patreon, where I upload 2 additional videos every month. Thank you so much to everybody who has supported me on the Patreon, on the coffee, which is for one-time donations, for the GoFundMe that I have been linking to. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And I also really appreciate everybody who has supported me by watching my videos, liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing my videos with other people. I love making videos, and we are extremely, extremely close to 5,000 here in the Nuance Corner, which is just really kind of overwhelming to me. Yeah. I love you. Thank you for listening to me when I talk about stuff. I will be back to talk about something else very soon. This outfit is a little bit Chucky. I'm aware. I just don't want to leave this video without you knowing that I'm aware.